to see when that's making me hot.
I'm always cold. I know I'm always cold. It would be way too long.
Okay.
In the winter's always.
Yeah, John. Oh, good afternoon. The subcommittee meeting of the Ways and Means Committee. If we could all rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm gonna talk for a couple of minutes.
Only couple.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a roll call, Jim?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. The committee's made up of myself, John Kingston as chair, Stacy Bronson Rizzo and Anthony Paggiano. In attendance also is Aisha Miller-Ellis. I'm going around the room, Mr. Mayor, no selection. Aisha Miller-Ellis, Jacqueline Monterosso, Matt Cruz, the business administrator, Dr. Kelly, superintendent, Daniel Mopado, assistant superintendent, and Pat Keefe, mayor, and Fred Sinella. So we have more than a quorum. Thank you for your attendance and thank you for your time. Some nights I don't sleep, so I read. I've done a lot of reading about class size and how it's a common sense to me, but also to read data and see that how many studies have been on class size. So to me, retaining as many classroom teachers as we can and not upping the size of classes is my first priority. And that's how I'll be voting in the future. So I feel very strongly about that. There's a ton of data out there. It's not just me saying it. It's not just my opinion. There's a ton of data about class size. And, you know, especially in younger grades, how important it is to have as lower class size as you can get. Because it really does help with learning. And the other part is we talk a lot about teachers engaging parents and stuff like that. And one of the things about class size that kind of hit me was, you know, if you're trying to engage 25 parents or 20 parents, that's 5 less parents that you have to try to engage with. I know we have Parent Square and that helps send out a mass message, but sometimes you need to reach people individually. And, you know, the less that you have to do within the class, the easier it is for the teacher. Who, you know, we realize teachers are in short supply. And we need to retain and keep as many as we can. So, that's number one. Number two, I realize we have some money, saved up, which I think is great. But my concern is, and the mayor was just talking about the new high school. I'm worried about the operating costs for the school department when the new high school opens. It's the city's responsibility to pay for the building, but I'm worried about the costs that we're gonna incur in potentially 3 years from now, 3 years from this August, hopefully, if the school opens on time. And what it's gonna cost to maintain that building. If someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that building is 20% bigger than this one. So it's gonna require a lot more hands to keep it running efficiently. There's an awful lot of landscaping I noticed when I watched the building committee meetings. Someone's gonna have to take care of all that. There's gonna be some, I would call it, you know, the technology just to heat the building is a little different than what we have here. So I think there's gonna be a lot of costs to running that new building, plus this building is staying up. So the cost of this building. We also have, which I'm very excited about, and I again thank the mayor for the project at the McKinley. But that's gonna involve hiring early childhood teachers and other support staff there. So that's another cost, and hopefully that'll be sooner than the high school. So we're looking at a lot of costs down the road, and with the uncertainty at the federal and state level as far as funding. I think it's just something we have to think about, and I'm not really talking to the committee, I'm talking to whoever's watching this meeting, whether it's now or later. I wanna make sure the parents understand, what are we doing? We are gonna have to make some cuts. We do have some money, and someone might say, we'll just use all the money this year. Well, we really can't, because this money may have to last us for a very long time. And again, with the. Oh, no, I'm just talking in generality, I think it's easy. So that's my concern, and that's where I am here. So classroom teachers to me is number one. Class size is very important. I appreciate all the supports and all the people we've hired to support the teachers. I value them, and I think it's great that we've had them, but whether we can sustain all that, I'm not 100% sure of. So that's just how I feel. If someone else would like to talk after that, but so classroom teachers and maintaining class size is my number one priority, and I'm not going to veer from that. So I realize I'm only one vote, and it takes four to get something done, but, I would hope that people would understand that and give that some thought. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. Reed.
I just want to say, right now, we need to deal with what's at hand. And yeah, yes, we can worry about what's gonna come down the road and be thoughtful also, because we should have been thoughtful for the past 5 years when we were saying yes to all these positions. And we were given gifts. So thoughtful always has to be in back of our heads, but right now, we need to deal with year 26. And we can all leave our votes on the side until it comes time to vote.
Unless, do you want to say something?
So,
So I just want to add, since John is educating any people who may be watching, we had originally a $12 million budget deficit. That was brought down to 7.3 with some carryover funds that we had. We were then looking at a little over 3 million. And so the point of this meeting was we were going to take another look at things, and the committee was to come back with the subcommittee, and members of the school committee were going to come back with some questions about some other positions after reviewing this. And it's not to say, I speak for myself, this is what I want cut. This is to say, I don't understand this position. Is this essential? What is this person? Is this something? Is this a position that we could, that we need? And so with that, I just want to make sure that we stay focused, because time, I mean, these meetings are far and few as it is, and the time that should be geared up towards narrowing down this budget from to meet our goal of 1.7 in cuts. Is that okay? So you want-
If we can start, if you want to, through the chair to Diane, if she can review all the additional proposed cuts.
Yeah, and if I could just respond a little bit to, what's been said. Obviously, class size is hugely important to us. It's one of the things we've been prioritizing over the last decade. And I do want to give credit to the school committees that have been, supporting us over the last 5 years, who I think were very strategic and thoughtful and forward thinking, and not spending all of the money that we could have in the last 5 years, but being thoughtful about creating that $10 million savings account, I'm gonna call it. And that was 5 years ago that committee voted and said, yes, let's do that. Let's create that account. Let's start saving that money, because we know we're gonna come to the end of the Student Opportunity Act. We know that's gonna be a problem for us, and we need to be prepared for it. I will acknowledge that we're hitting that sooner than we anticipated, but thank goodness we were thoughtful about it. And so I just want to make sure that credit is given, and any of the positions that we have suggested be eliminated already. We've been very thoughtful about those also. And it's not been done in isolation. We have met with every single one of the principals. We have met with all of the curriculum directors, and we have looked through and debated and thought about what are the right moves that we can make to bring the budget into the realm, as Aisha said, but also make sure that we are giving adequate services to all students, regardless of whether they have special education needs or English learner needs, or they're advanced, or whatever the case may be. So that's been a priority for us throughout this whole process. And then, as Aisha started to say, you know, we had brought the gap down to about $3.46 million the last time the subcommittee met. And at that point, we were asked to go back and refine and given some ideas on where individual members thought there might be some places for us to make additional cuts. And with that in mind, Danielle just gave out a one-pager, got a blue list at the top, and I can just take you through that.
Okay.
So the first thing that we identified was the 2 elementary special education coach positions. So these are 2 coaching positions where each of the individuals is split across 3 schools. And what the principals and directors have determined is that that's not super effective because they're only in one building about a day and a half a week. They felt like the special ed coordinators in their building were doing more work supporting teachers and helping them implement IEPs than the coaches. If there had been 6 of them, they might have been more effective, but we think the structure of that program, because there were so few of them serving so many different schools, that that would be a place right now that we should reconsider until such a time that budget allows for a more extensive program there. The next one is the 4 consulting teachers, and this is one of the pieces that we spoke about at the last meeting. We have a consulting teacher at the lower elementary, one at the upper elementary, one at the middle, and one at the high school. And the consulting teachers provide job embedded professional development for other teachers to help them hone their skills and become better at their craft. Valuable program, without a doubt. We have very effective people working in those positions. And they do a great job, but to quote one of the principals, it's a great thing to have, but not a necessity. Stacy?
Diane, can I just, if consultant teachers, are those the C to C?
Yeah.
C2D, yep.
Mr. Chair, is it? Do you want us to ask questions per thing, or do you want to get to it first?
Either way, I'm done.
If I may through the chair, my first question is, do we have sped coordinators at every school?
Yes,
So they would fill the gap in support instead of these 2 coaches.
yes, so they're already, it's not that they would fill the gap, it's that they're already doing that level of work. And I'll tell you that when I spoke to the principals, so this was part of our special education redesign that we did a few years ago. And we added the special ed coordinator in each building, which we didn't used to have. And we also put in 2 elementary special education coaches, one at the middle level and one at the high school. The middle and high school principals all felt their special ed coaches were absolutely invaluable. Please don't remove them. We need them. They're doing incredible work, helping teachers implement student IEPs in the classroom. The elementary coaches felt similarly, however, they thought that they could do the work that needed to be done with the special education coordinator leading the work, as opposed to the coach that they only had 1 day a week. Do you know what I'm saying? It wasn't the best model, let me put it that way. I think that if every building had its own special ed coach, they would have said, please don't cut them, please don't cut them. But because they were stretched so thin, I think they saw it as
The work had to be done anyway.
yes,
It was being
yeah, the
done.
work was happening anyway.
Right.
And then for the consulting teachers, how long has this program been running?
Oh my gosh.
6.
6 or 7 years, when did we start with the consulting
9.
teachers? 9 years ago? Yeah, it was a while
I
ago.
just looked at
Well
last
before
night.
COVID, I remember that.
And then were these separate positions, or were these also like an add-on to teachers already teaching in their buildings?
So the consulting teachers had full release from classroom responsibilities. And what they do is they identify an area of expertise or multiple at the beginning of the year. And teachers volunteer to work with their consulting teacher on a year-long deep dive, deeper learning study of a particular concept around instruction.
So these would be like 4 decisions we are cutting, and not like we go back to the classroom.
These folks would go back to
Back to
classrooms,
classroom.
yes, yeah.
Also, Diane, there's still every 3 years, right? It's not the
It's-
same person for 9
Correct.
years.
That's right, it's a
every-
2-year cycle.
Oh, 2.
So a consulting teacher comes out of the classroom, spends 2 years in the position as a consulting teacher, and then goes back to the classroom. And part of the idea is that they learn so much being a consulting teacher, even though they're already an excellent teacher, that when they go back to the classroom, all that they've learned from working with their peers is visited on the students that they then instruct.
Okay, so it's sunsetting the program and the payment for that, but not actually losing physical teachers.
Correct, and I'd like to call it pausing the program. Hopefully someday we get back to it. And the same for the the elementary special ed coach positions, those are folks that would go back to classrooms. The next one is, we created a second elementary health position. And the idea with that is we had a female educator who was delivering health instruction at the elementary level across the 6 schools. And we thought it would be beneficial to our young male students to have a male role model in that job as well. They might have different questions of a male health teacher than they would of a female health teacher. And so we created a second elementary health position. And that was a great thing to have. But we can deliver the program that we're required to deliver with one person. And so that's another position that we've identified. The adaptive PE is similar. We had one position, we currently have 2 positions. Right now we have one at elementary and one at secondary. What we had before was just one teacher at the secondary level. And the principals feel like their phys ed teachers do a great job of integrating students with special needs into the regular phys ed program at the elementary level, and that they would be fine to do that without this additional teacher.
So where is the current adaptive PE in middle school, you said?
There's
Elementary.
one in the middle.
There's one at elementary and one at secondary,
Right.
so the secondary person does the middle schools and the high schools. And they find it's very valuable to have a dedicated teacher doing adaptive PE at the secondary level where the kids are bigger and engage a little bit differently with athletics and phys ed. But at the elementary level, the principals felt strongly that that's a position that they could, that their PE teachers do a great job of
Gotcha.
integrating the kids with special needs without having a dedicated position.
So just, I'm sorry, I'm asking questions here to you, Mr. Chair. The adaptive PE for the secondary level, where do they spend most of their time though?
They split between the 3 middle
Three
schools and the high
One
school,
person.
one person.
One person.
Yeah.
There's one person.
So 4 schools.
Is there a general rotation or?
Yeah, they have a schedule that's set up, which building they're in, which day, and
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I didn't know we had that split.
Dr. Kelly, can I just ask, with the elementary health, is it still the phys ed teacher that does scoliosis for the boys, or would it be that
the
new?
nurses
yeah,
do scoliosis check.
pardon me?
The nurses do scoliosis.
But they
check.
always did the girls, oh, no, I'm thinking puberty.
Yeah,
I'm thinking puberty, okay. And they all see.
anything else, or should I go on?
Mhm.
The next item is, 2 BCBA positions. Those are our, behavior analysts who do observations of students prior to identification for special needs. We currently have 6 people in that position. And, the elementary principals, together with the special ed office, have identified 2 that they feel that they could live without. And keep the 4 positions, that the 4 positions would be able to service the district adequately.
And Diane, with that, do we have any paras in those positions that are trained assistants for BCBA?
Not at this time, right now,
Because
so
there is a
the,
program.
there is a program, and right now the 6 BCBA's that we have are fully licensed.
Mhm.
But that is a position that we could look at. If we feel like we need, if we go through next year and find out that 4 is too few. We could look to hire an assistant BCBA, which would be a lesser cost.
Mhm.
That's something that we would look at.
Dr. Kelly, what is the current caseload for BCBA?
So it's hard to say because they're not assigned a group of kids. They're on staff so that if we see a student who's struggling, then they're assigned to go in and observe that student. So it's hard to tell in advance how many kids we're gonna have that need those services. But the special ed department with the executive director and the 2 directors felt like this would be doable based on what they've been seeing in the trends the last couple of years, which have been coming down. Remember, we peaked with behavior issues when we came back from COVID, and across the board, we're starting to see that improve. The next item is an easy one. It's a teaching position that we found still in the budget for a Spanish teacher. This is gonna be across all 3 middle schools that didn't get filled. So we're gonna eliminate that from the budget. High school biology, looking at enrollment, they're able to, give excellent level of services with one less position. There's another position at the high school. Chris hasn't narrowed down exactly what it is yet. He's looking at there's a couple of different areas where he thinks that he can make an adjustment. I know he's deep in the throes of graduation and trying to dot all those i's and cross all those t's. So we'll have a better definition on what that's gonna be in the next week or so. And then the next one is the current civics coach that we have, and I wrote 6 through 8, but it's really 6 through 12. That's been a really important position, and we actually have a phenomenal teacher who's in that role right now and has helped us implement the new civics requirements that came from the state for 8th grade. Unfortunately, it's a position that we feel that if we have to, would be one that could be cut.
Who would provide that support for those?
Yeah, that's a shame.
It is a shame. The director will have to provide that support.
I'm just wondering if we have more coaches in other subjects, so we only have one coach in this subject, if it's more important for us to evaluate reducing the number of coaches, but at least covering every subject, especially given the times we're in and the support our civics teachers need.
Yeah, I can tell you that the principals were extremely adamant. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'll say that they begged us, please don't touch the math and literacy coaches. They do so much in getting the kids ready for MCAS, which is still a real thing. I know people think MCAS went away, it didn't. It just doesn't count as a graduation requirement anymore, but the kids still have to take it and the teachers still have to prepare them for it. Not that we're trying to teach the test by any means. But it's still the metric by which our district is going to be rated and ranked in a state accountability system. None of these positions are positions that we would want to cut if we could possibly not. None of them. They all have value. But these are the ones in working with the principals and the directors that they felt they was most able to move forward and deliver the level of services that our students deserve. Despite not having these positions, hopefully temporarily until, I don't know, something changes with education funding. So this represents, $1.26 million in cuts. And when we apply that to the 3.469 we were at last time, our goal was to get down to 1.734. This brings us to 2.2. Which means there's still 474,000 that we haven't quite reached our goal at. And there are a couple of different ideas that Matt and I wanted to talk about around the 474. And I'll also say that if need be, if it's the will of the committee, I have identified other cuts with the principals, that they feel would be the least harmful, to their schools. They're cuts that I don't really want to go into. They're like, math interventionists and literacy interventionists, which I think are critically important because they're the folks who give the one-on-one attention when a student is struggling. If you tell me we have to, we can attack the 474, but I'm gonna flip it over to Matt, so that he can talk a little bit about why we feel like it might be okay to stop here. And just before he gets to that, a couple of other points I wanted to make. This budget includes the adjustments from the salary committee that we worked on. That's all in here. It includes the previous cuts that we talked about at the last meeting. It includes the input of principals and directors and other administrators in the district. And that's what we asked. We want to talk about.
Before we go on to the difference, can we just go back to these issues? So, first, thank you for this work. I am gonna give you some pushback on the last three cuts. Not to say that it's not what's gonna be, but I'm just, the last thing I wanted to touch were student-facing positions. And I was hopeful that we could look at some other peripheral positions before we would touch any teaching positions. So,
So let me start with the high school biology. We have increased our staff in biology at the high school significantly. And losing this position will not put class sizes over 20.
okay,
So those are the kinds of decisions, those are the kinds of things that we've looked at. And principals have looked at in making these decisions. The same is true if you look at the last batch. Again, if I go back to the two teachers at the Beachmont, one of them is a fifth grade position that will leave those fifth grade classes at a class size of 20. There are 40 fifth graders in that school. Moving one of those fifth grade positions still means there's only 20 kids in class, which is tiny for a fifth grade.
okay. So I just have some questions and you could probably answer them fairly quickly, but as I went through this, I noticed that, well, it wasn't clear about one thing, like page 59, it's City Lab. And there are quite a few.
Any on this?
Versus three.
Version 3.
Oh, I hope so.
It's all along.
Oh, probably not, I'm probably.
We can probably.
I have 59 written down, so I'm assuming
It's 59 City Lab,
budget 3.
where's the budget number?
It's the,
What was the question?
yeah.
59.
Yeah, I'm on version 3.0. I'm on
59
version
instructional,
3.0.
yeah.
I'm on 3.0. So my question is in City Lab, let me just see where I am. There are several instructional coaches. Are these coaches limited to City Lab?
I have to look at what you told.
It's on page 59. I'm sorry, page 59.
Does it say instructional support?
It does.
So that's not City Lab.
Okay, is this district-wide coaches?
That's the section that houses the consultant teachers and the coaches, regardless of where they're placed.
Okay,
So the coach for foreign language is the first line,
okay,
the coach for middle school language. The lower elementary consulting teacher is the third line. So this section is just coaches and consulting teachers.
but this doesn't represent all the coaches, right?
No.
Right, that's why I'm a little confused, just if you could just explain the,
Page.
Go to page 59.
I guess, so my questions more specifically are, and page 59, coaches, there's,
Page 59, yeah, that is all of the coaches. No, wait, my page 59 says Garfield Elementary Classroom Teachers.
okay, no,
Mine has what she's saying.
okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was 39.
So I guess my questions are, and
Oh, page 59.
my questions are, when I was going through this budget, having not really much of an idea as to what all of these positions really entail,
Mhm.
what is I had questions about the mindful coach, the deeper learning coaches.
Those are gone.
These are
Those
all
are-
gone,
yeah,
okay,
Yeah,
so that's
Not
gone,
yet.
yeah.
Well, okay, they were.
That's
cut
not
from-
gone, but
they
those
were
are
cut from
potential.
those were in.
Potential cuts.
In the
yes,
first
sorry.
one.
In the
Yeah.
first round,
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that was one of my questions. It seemed like that list went along with City Lab, so I was like, all of these coaches are in City Lab, okay.
No, yeah, those are the
Um,
district coaches.
And then I also noticed, this is just turning the page, I can't find the page number here, but the SROs. It was reduced to 1,
So, no, the city pays for the SROs, and what we agreed when we went from 3 to 4 is that we would pay for the 4th.
okay,
So the city pays for the other 3,
okay,
the student
Correct.
pays for 1.
who pays 1, okay, that's easy.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
And then-
Chad.
We're not going there, we're doing good. We're doing good.
I said, thank you.
And
to
then
our
my other
taxes.
question
welcome. Thank
was,
you, tax
I
rate.
noticed that the student support specialists, they're
Mhm.
categorized under the teachers.
Mhm.
But they're actually liaisons, is that like
They're
by
licensed
design, they're
teachers,
licensed teachers who
Yes.
work as support staff, okay,
so they're the ones who oversee the academics when a student is struggling.
okay. And then my final question really had to do around substitutes.
Mhm.
And if there's anything that we could do, like, are they I imagine they're all fully utilized. And when I ran the numbers based on just averages, it seems like we're right about there.
What page you want?
69. 69 is the substitutes, but that's a big budget for substitute teachers.
I have it on 18. It went up
It's
60%.
various places.
It's a various, but
I was also gonna ask if our substitute budget, do we always like reach it, like do we max out on that?
that's what I was asking, yeah.
We were
Yeah.
underfunded this year.
Right.
Substitute budget.
It was underfunded this year. We have seen an increase in staff absenteeism, which is why we've tried to right size it for next year. Because it was underfunded previously, but it depends on how many maternity leaves we have, how many long-term illnesses we have. We predict as much as we know. We do have a handful of staff members who have told us already that they're expecting next year, and we can plan for that. If somebody's gonna be gone for their classroom for more than 30 days, we're required by state law to put a licensed teacher in there. So we do always have a couple of long-term subs, like if you look at, I'm on page 69 now, I don't know if that
Yep,
makes.
yep,
If you look under other subs toward the bottom, it says for long-term subs, moving on to contracts, 420. Those are people, those are licensed teachers that we hire. Danielle actually manages them, and they might go from one maternity leave in the fall to some kind of a medical leave in the winter, and then to another maternity leave in the spring. So they're considered a full-time teacher on salary, and get a full teacher's salary working for us, and have to be licensed in order to do that. That's separate from the teachers that you see, if you look up above, daily subs. And the Beach One substitutes has 42,000, Garfield Elementary has 80,000. Those estimates are based on what they've been for the last couple of years for those buildings. We did talk to the principals this year about, we had been in the habit in the last few years of using teachers and paras as substitutes when somebody was going to be out. And making sure principals are being mindful of not automatically thinking, oh, that para is absent, we need to have another para stay on for the full day. Well, if there's a second para in that room anyway, we don't need to have another para stay on for the full day. And just making sure that they're looking at things like that and not automatically dipping into the substitute budget to make sure that we can maintain that a little bit.
and the long-term subs that are moving on to contracts, like
Yeah.
those are all fully like, they're full, so they're constantly working,
Yes.
Correct,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There's no like lag.
No,
Okay.
and if they were unassigned for a period of time, they stay in that building as a day-to-day sub covering, so we don't have to hire a sub. Until they move on to their next assignment, but Danielle has them
Yeah.
pretty tight. Usually, I mean, things don't work out perfectly, so there could be somebody who's covering a maternity leave, say from the beginning of the year until the beginning of November. But another teacher goes out at the end of October. Well, nobody will be there until this one's available to go do that in November, and we'll maybe have a day-to-day sub there for 4 or 5 days until the permanent sub is able to make the switch.
Are those the examples that you provided as far as reasons for the long-term leave? Is that mostly what we're dealing with, maternity leaves and illness?
Mhm.
Or they're just, is there habitual absenteeism like we see with the students?
There is some, there's definitely an increase in staff attendance, since COVID. I think people look at illness differently than they used to. We do address that whenever it's necessary with individual employees.
Okay,
On that, just because we're on page 69, I had a question, assistant principals, I know it's small, but assistant principals covering for principals, so did they get a differential if the principal calls out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if
Is
they're on
that- is that con-
vacation.
Is that contractual?
Yeah,
One question I want to ask,
pardon me?
It's generous
it is.
for an administrator.
You would think that's.
Does the job change like a lot that day, or?
Well, if you think about what a principal has to do if there's any kind of an issue in a school, that's stuff that assistant principals typically don't have to deal with.
Yeah, I used to joke that I would wear my suit on the day that the principal wasn't in, because that would be the day that something bad would happen and I would like
Be on the news.
be on the news. type
Gotcha.
thing.
Right.
it's not that big a differential.
No,
No.
still,
No, we negotiate.
I think when you start hitting those levels, it's like, you should want to strive to do that.
Well, I'd be more concerned about having 3 assistants in the building too.
Well, that my curiosity too was, given that prior to this year, there wasn't operational coordinators in the middle schools. So does the operational coordinator then go into the assistant principal role or something like that?
Well, oh, no, but only one person, so even if there's multiple assistant principals, only one person gets the differential. One person is the
The lead-
taking the place of the principal that day.
Gotcha.
Question, when you cover the subs, is it just when someone is out, do you do a sub or do you pay like a teacher's premium time if they have an open hour?
It's a combination of both. And that's something that was new in the contract when we came back from COVID and couldn't find subs.
Okay.
We negotiated with the teachers and had a memorandum of understanding that they would get paid the hourly rate for every hour that they substituted. And that's tricky because at the high school, it's an 80-minute block, right? So teachers would sign up in advance and say that I can give this many period 3 each week. Because most of them didn't want to sub every day. They do have stuff to do on their prep period. But if they were subbing on their prep period, they would get paid the hourly rate for that. And so at the high school, they would get paid for 4 hours for every 3 hours they subbed.
Okay, what is the premium rate?
Oh,
$38.
$38?
What is it?
$38 an
But
hour.
it's 80 minutes, so I think it runs to, was it 54? Something like that.
Yeah,
the
they, well, they've
It's
worked the,
it's 38 plus the 20 extra minutes, because it's an 80-minute block.
yeah,
So I
but
think
it's
it's like 54, 53, 54.
Okay.
for a period, but still 38 an
Okay, so the
hour.
point I'm
Yeah.
trying to make is, isn't it more feasible to have a couple subs on hand? Even if not, someone is out, instead of paying someone that type of
Yeah.
money?
Well, it's not hugely different, if you think about it, that would be $160 for.
Yeah,
Not
the
sorry,
sub varies
38,
from
672, 140.
117, 130.
Yeah, so it's 140 to have teachers cover for the day, it's 117, 130
Well, it's not
for,
140, so what you want? Over 50 an hour. It's 50 for the
No, no, no.
period. Yes, it's $38 per hour, but it's an 80-minute block, so you gotta
Right.
add on the quarter, so it's like 50, so it's over $200 a day to have the teacher fill in.
yeah.
And how many teachers?
And they're not
are there?
teaching, they're just watching the class.
That's why,
Not teaching.
because when you're talking about 2 hours, you're paying someone, we can have a sub all day. So is it more feasible just to have, say, 2 at each? If you break it down on an, I'm gonna say 37 weeks. 20 subs, if you break it down per day, it comes out to about $550,000. You can have them on the hand in case something
It's
happens,
not 150 last year, so it's like this one, so.
Let me,
It's still a big-
I'm just saying,
something.
because
Yeah,
Isn't
I
our
just say,
budget-
one thing, no, we don't have 75 people banging down the door to be subs.
Well, that's what I was
You
gonna
know,
ask you.
so, like,
I was
that's
gonna
one of the
ask you.
reasons we didn't-
That's my
We're
question.
supposed to look
Yeah.
at that salary.
Have we seen a change?
We
with
do,
beginning with
and
subs?
Danielle can speak to this because she's the one who runs it, but we do about 5 sub trainings every year. They're required to go through a policies and procedures training before they can substitute in the schools. That's by state law. We sign them up. There are schools that have specific people who come every day.
Yeah.
Because they know somebody's gonna be out, right?
Right.
Somebody's gonna call in sick. And the schools do a very good job where they know somebody's gonna be out. If somebody has a personal day or something like that planned, they have the coverage arranged in advance. But the day-to-day call-ins are a little bit more difficult. And as much as they can, they go to the sub list and hire people from there. We were running into the problem that we couldn't find people to cover. And it used to be, in all honesty, that at the elementary and middle school level, if they didn't have a substitute, they would take Diane Kelly's class and put 5 kids into Patrick Keefe's class, 5 into Aisha Milbury's class, 5 into Danielle Mohaba's, and 5 into Matt Cruz's. And there were no substitutes, and those kids would sit at the back of the room, yeah. And you know. We've got to come up with a better solution for what happens when a teacher is absent, there's no doubt about it. But I don't know that that's an effective solution for the kids whose teacher is absent. Or for the kids who are in the class where there's just 5 random kids sitting in the back of the room.
Right.
Not.
Diane, are
Wait,
they
is this our
still
budget
calling-
1.3?
Are they still calling the same list, everybody using the same list? When I left, we'd all call the same list, so you could call you'd be the 5th person to call that person. By then they'd say, look, I'm already going to the McKinley.
Yeah, they,
Get off
so
my back.
it is still one list, but everybody on the list has identified what schools they wanna work
Well,
with.
there's always.
So
a
they're
preference.
sorted by that. And so the principal, the assistant principals actually are the ones who do this work. Do call, they have their particular people that typically work with them, and then there's others that they can choose from.
But the thing you've gotta look at is, Boston, if you retire and you got a full 180 days, my understanding is they get a year's salary.
Wow.
So there's incentive not to use your sick cards. The thing here is the policing sub absenteeism. After Memorial Day, I understand that there were 5 to 7 teachers that requested personal days that were rejected and still took the day off. So this is administrative that these people have to be called to task. I mean, you know, within reason, they have a right to ask why. And if they're only gonna get $25 buyback or $30 buyback, they're gonna use their sick time. It's their days. They own them, not whether they're sick or not. So that's something that's not gonna be evaluated to a point unless money's become a viable tool.
I have kind of an elementary question. Do we post the substitute jobs on the city's website or just our own?
Yeah, they're on there.
Under the
The
city,
day-to-day
the city of Revere? I don't think I've ever seen that.
Nurses, it's.
Day-to-day stuff.
The day, yeah, I've seen the nurses for the city, but I've never seen the.
You know, I'm not sure either.
I'm not sure
Well,
either. I don't-
I know at the beginning of the school year, they were like the
Anyway,
nurses,
if
like.
we're not, maybe
standard.
that's something that we could do.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll get it, I mean, there's probably more people checking the city's website for jobs than the school.
yep.
And they were met. So is our new budget for substitutes 1.3 million? Page 69,
That's right.
okay.
This
That's
is
including the
the,
permanent subject too.
this includes every substitute cost.
Okay.
It's a right sizing. It's one of the first. We document at the beginning of the budget, hey, this is something that you notice has gone up dramatically for a variety of reasons. And in the last 2 years, we've kind of seen it, looked at it, nodded it, known it was an issue. And then for this year, we have to correct this, because the gap between budget and actual was getting too large.
Okay.
So next year, unless there's unforeseen things, you won't see that go up to 1.8 million or 2 million.
And how many of the permanent subs do you have?
It's kind of a
I-
misnomer.
That's the 420, right?
Yeah.
That makes the
The
420.
420, I didn't show the math like I did with the principals. It's
A handful,
Did you say 85?
no, maybe 5,
Oh,
probably budgeted at 6
yeah.
or 7,
6 or 7.
at 60 or 70,000, that's how we get to that number.
And this is full time.
Right, and the first day of the year, there's a couple. And then by the end of the year, there's 6 or 7, or sometimes more, depending on what's taking place.
Thank you.
Mr. Snell?
Diane, the proposed cuts that we're talking, I mean, everyone's rounded out to 90,000. A civics coach, that's a relatively new position. Civics is coming back. How did you arrange everyone to be 90,000?
Right, so those are estimates, of course.
Okay.
And the 90,000 is to represent roughly $70,000 salary and then $20,000 for benefits. Most likely, each of these positions is higher than that, but we wanted to be conservative in how we budgeted it, so we're only budgeting 90,000.
Okay, but the other thing too is it's 14 teaching positions, not one administrator anywhere.
That was gonna be my next question was, have we looked at the administrative side of things?
We did. And if you look at the staffing levels, you'll notice that we've only added 3 administrative positions. Those were the 3 operations positions at the oh, this doesn't show previous, but I don't know if you have
This one
that.
says 25.
Yeah, but if you go back to like FY 2021.
Yep.
The difference in the number of administrators, so since then, if my memory serves, is the 3 middle school positions we added. There's the executive director of special education that we added. There's the operations person at the high school that we added,
Early childhood director.
early childhood director.
Maybe arts.
Hmm?
Arts director. Maybe.
Maybe fine arts, I can't remember now when Kelly started.
Kelly, 2 years now. No, third, this is her third.
So we've added maybe 5 administrative positions
And help and
and health,
Jill's.
6. And I wanna say that we've added over 150.
If you compare FY 21 to FY 26. We've added 144 new instructional staff. And that's after these reductions, so the number is probably more accurately 160 or 70. Before the cuts for this year. And over that time, there's been an addition, I categorize it as leadership of 14 leadership position. Assistant superintendent. The fine arts director and the health director and the third director. Assistant principals and operations coordinators.
Cause we added the 2 at Hill School. We added a second AP at Hill School, Garfield.
Third,
all of them,
Third.
Lincoln.
second assistant, you're right.
Yeah.
third admin, yeah. At Lincoln.
So under the directors, what's the difference between the assistant and the operational assistant? Sorry, Stacy, go ahead.
Yeah, if you could direct it this way, it might be a little.
Right, so just for the math on that, the other way to. say
Hold
it-
on, one moment. Go ahead, Stacy.
No, I had a couple of questions and I wanted to make sure we were done with substitutes and other things before I asked a question. We talked about operation coordinators. Are they under the administrator contract? Because that's
Yes.
what,
Yes.
Yes,
so we agreed to that
Yeah,
when we
Yes.
did it?
yes,
So if they were to be deleted, they would still go into the classroom with the same amount they get now.
correct.
there is a provision in the Riviera Administrators Association that says if a job is eliminated due to reduction in force. That administrator would keep their full salary for 2 years after returning to the RTA.
We have to read more closely. So. Then I look at human resource, and I know, sorry, John, but human resource, we just started that position 4 years ago. Then we added an assistant, and now we have another person at 60,000.
No, it's a reclassification based on job description. So previously, the 3. Operations assistants at the front were all categorized as superintendent staff. But you remember Ellie Collar?
Yes.
No names.
So she was, her position, for example, had a lot of HR to it. So all we're doing with this is. Slotting it into the HR function code, not adding a person to HR.
But I thought we did away with that position totally.
With Ellie's position?
Yeah,
You're thinking of Izzy's position?
No names.
no, I wasn't here.
Oh,
Superintendent staff.
In other words, the super.
Which page are you
I
on?
can tell you that when I started here, there were
16.
4
16.
administrative assistants in the superintendent's office. And now there are 2. And there is a position, an administrative assistant position in the HR department.
Right.
And an administrative assistant in the building maintenance and facilities department.
Okay, no, without names.
No, I don't think we should.
Oh, it
You're
should be.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's a desk where the person who I thought's position was done away with another person there.
I don't know what you-
So,
Isn't that the third human resource
Yes.
person? Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I thought that was hired as someone else.
Right, that's not,
Right.
that was.
Right.
Yeah, no, so when we went from 4 administrative assistants to the superintendent. Down to 3.
Mhm.
That still left. Those 3 people.
Okay, I didn't realize that 4th person out front was that specific person.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was still in that position because it still wasn't filled for a few years. Well, by a couple of different people. The desk was empty for a few years.
The desk was only empty when we didn't have somebody in the job.
Right.
But it wasn't because we didn't fill it.
Who's next up the bat?
Was it, how many people in HR? 3.
Right.
Three, okay.
So it's
A
3 full-time?
director, an HR administrator and an HR secretary.
So the HR secretary wasn't in the budget last year, but it wanted in this year.
The HR secretary was under superintendent's office last year and is under HR this year.
So it's not, it's reclassified.
Good, if I can just say too, I mean, for a staff size this big, having 3 people in HR is still less than you should have. And I know that on the city side
That's
too.
the same with all departments. Everything's getting bigger and, that's where I wanna make a clarification, Dr. Kelly. At our last meeting, you spoke about how, the health department requires 751 nurse. That's countrywide. Statewide, it's recommended 250 to 5. So we're growing.
Yeah.
That staff hasn't really grown at all. So we can say everyone's growing.
Right.
Every department is growing.
Who's next? Yes. Overall.
Have we looked at the business office?
Also understaffed.
It looks like Wall Street in there. Are there any other,
No, I
aside
mean-
from the,
If you look at the number of
I'm just
staff,
asking.
yeah, if you look at the number of staff that we have in the business office. Keep in mind that between the money that you're looking at right now as our budget. And all of the grants that we manage, it's about $180 million a year.
Mhm.
And the folks in the business office do everything from creating requisitions to converting to purchase orders, to entering the information into Munis. To making sure that we are following the procurement laws and all of the payroll.
No, there's no doubt. I'm not questioning that. I guess I'm saying that if you had to shrink that department by some portion, would you be able to, could you combine roles? Could you do that?
Matches list is here.
Well, I mean, we can't just, I don't wanna look at solely at teachers. There are other departments here that need to
Right.
also be looked at, and cuts should come across the board.
Well, but I wanna be clear that where we have added positions over these last many years is in the teaching
In the
group.
teachers, I get that. I
You
get
know,
that.
so,
You're still operating off the same
Yeah.
number.
The
Yeah.
staffing levels that we printed out is just comparing last year to this year, but we did go back to FY 21. Which was the post-COVID fiscal year, the COVID fiscal year. And SOA kicking in and ESSER. And there were 14 positions over those 6 fiscal years added to your leadership. There was nearly 170 positions added to your instructional staff.
Is that due to
I get
increase
that.
in
We have,
enrollment?
we've increased a lot of
Is that
teachers.
increased enrollment that maybe the faculty had to increase? I mean,
well, our goal was to create these positions that we're eliminating now that gave help teachers increase their skill set and reduce class sizes.
no, I'm just trying to balance out statistically what you're saying. That the administrative part increased 114, whatever it was, but enrollment may have justified that. I mean, you're exonerating that administratively, everything is copacetic, we haven't gone up. And if the kids didn't increase, then you wouldn't have increased teachers.
Well, so I just wanna clarify one thing, the leadership administration that Matt's talking about did go up by 14
Mhm.
over that 6 years. The teachers, the instructional staff went up by 170. That requires people to do their payroll, it requires people to evaluate them, it requires people to monitor their license, like HR,
Mhm.
all of that stuff has to happen.
Mhm.
And so by adding 14 positions on the administrative side, when you're added 170 teaching positions and other positions beyond that, is not hugely out of line when you've got a full staff of 1,500 people. Like, so that's the point, and we intentionally, again, I'll give credit to the school committees that were here in the last 5 years and voted budgets. We prioritized increasing the number of teachers so that we could reduce class size, so that we could have coaches. And make sure that all teachers are able to work at or, instruct at a higher level and give kids what they need all the time. More interventionists, restructuring the special ed department. All of that was done intentionally and none of it was bad work, right? If we only got to have 4 or 5 years benefit out of it, it was still 4 or 5 good years of benefit. It's a shame that we're having to cut some of it now, but when you didn't, I'm gonna use the term bulk up on the business office or the administrative side or the custodians or any of those other places, it's hard to say we should put cuts across the board when 90% of the gains in the last 6 years were strictly on instructional staff. You know?
Ms. Aldous.
Yes, so I have 3 questions. My first one is, so page 10 states, to clarify, Matt, we're using the 5 million and carry forward to help with the deficit?
Yes, we have not yet addressed the question of, hey, with the additional cuts that you have proposed, we still see a $500,000 gap. How's
Yeah.
that going to be resolved?
Yeah.
So we need to address that. We haven't yet,
Well-
but that will, the question that you're asking will intersect with the answer to that.
So we can use carry forward before even dipping in reserves to cover this before doing even more cuts.
We already did, we already factored that in, that's how we got to 7.
We have factored in $5 million in carry forward already.
So-
Yeah,
Okay, and then how much do we have in reserves?
10 million.
Okay, and then my next question is, on page 17, it shows a cut in instructional support. Since we have things in different places, I just wanted to have a clarification on what that actually means.
Sure, so that on page 17, where you see a cut in instructional support. That's because the superintendent has already recommended eliminating 3 of the coaching positions. So that was a part of our first round, so you're already seeing it in version 3.0.
And what subjects was that for? Was it general?
Deeper learning, mindfulness, and.
Oh, the ones from the other page, okay.
Yeah.
And then. Oh, he's saying Braxton Hicks. My next question was, I know in the last Ways and Means, we were all talking about the cuts to our nursing aides. My first question is, how many aides would we be losing?
There are currently 6,
And
and
then,
I have scheduled meetings with them this week to talk about what their skill sets are and what other positions they might be interested in. What I'm thinking, and I have to talk to them and understand if any of them have teaching licenses. And are interested in pursuing that, or are so positioned that we could get them a temporary teaching position, or a para position, or a school security position. Things like that, I've got to see what they're interested in.
and has this subcommittee talked about being able to preserve at least like some of these aides, making them. I know not all the schools have them already.
They're not paras.
Yes, I know what they're saying, yes. So I'm just asking if we've had discussions to not eliminate all of our nursing aides, because I've heard loud and clear, and for me, this could become a safety issue. And I know we have a nurse in every place, but I just wanna see if there's anything that we can cut that's non-staffing to preserve at least some of our nursing aides.
On-
Hold on. When, we haven't voted to cut them yet. They've been taken out, they were put over here, but we haven't taken any formal votes on anything yet.
Yeah,
But she's
No,
asking
I understand,
for
no, I'm just trying to
alternatives.
explain, they haven't been. Yeah, no, I'm looking for alternatives as well,
So that's
so
what I'm asking, can we
Yes.
talk about, are there alternatives?
we're gonna have to find some other cuts, that's part of the problem.
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Yes,
So on the heels of your comments, my question is, of the coaches, I'm really struggling with the civics coach, and I realize I want my cake and I wanna be able to eat it too. But let me ask you something, not including the EL coaches, not including the math coaches, what district-wide coaches remain?
None.
None. So there's no district-wide coaches. Okay, if they're not called coaches, I guess I'm looking at,
What's in?
forgive my ignorance.
So what
Adults
we-
in the building
yeah.
that go around and help other
We
adults
have
in the building.
math coaches, one in each building.
Yep.
Except that there's one that shares high school and city lab.
Yep,
one literacy coach,
Mhm.
that same situation. Two special ed coaches, one at the middle school, one at the high school.
Mhm.
And three EL coaches, one at the elementary, one at the middle, one at the high school. That's what we're proposing we move forward with. All other coaching positions would be eliminated.
But you're saying coaches, I know that there are other
And
similar
consulting
type
teachers,
consultant
so there's
teachers.
the 4 consulting teachers, and the rest are called coaches, and all of them, so that like. As we mentioned before, the mindfulness coach, the deeper learning coach, the STEM coach, the civics coach. Civics is
What
due
about the
this time.
restorative justice coach
In the grading practices.
and the grading practices coach? There's a grading practices coach?
Well, that's at the high school. Yeah,
I mean, those are two positions that I'd rather have the civics coach still working hands-on than those two positions. Not to say that they're not useful and effective and haven't served their purpose, but maybe you could speak to that. I might be told.
I've tried to relay to you what principals have said is important to them.
So the grading practice coach. How does that position work, and what is the principal at the high school said about the grading practice coach?
That when they're implementing the new report card next year, they cannot live without him.
And Ms. Morelos, I think this goes back to the concerns we've had where sometimes some teachers aren't fully grasping the grading system, and so this support, I feel like, is crucial to ensure everyone's actually grading properly and giving students the grades they need. For me also, I find the restorative justice coach very important, and we've had demonstrations, we've seen statistics of how it has helped reduce discipline concerns. I agree, I don't wanna lose the civics coach, but I'm wondering if we can examine some non-personnel costs that we could further reduce so that we can talk about all the staff that are still crucial for it.
That's fair enough.
Ms. Rizzo?
We did, if I can just speak to that for 1 second, we did cut all non-salary. Line items by 40% already. I don't know how we even have paper if we cut more than that.
The income in freshman class is significantly reduced, right? It's like 400 plus. How does that play into all of our discussions on, since everything's based on enrollment?
So one of the things that you'll notice in the first rounds, we proposed 5 teacher positions at the high school. And then this time we are proposing 2 more. One is the biology. And one is the TBA that I mentioned. And that is to offset the decreased enrollment that we're gonna see at the high school. That's why you see so many more positions at the high school than you do at the other schools.
Okay,
Ms. Rizzo?
thank you.
So. I might be wrong, but in the business office, don't you share 2 of those people part-time with you and part-time with other departments like Title I or athletics department?
Yes,
I
there's,
thought there were a couple
there's-
of positions that
there's
shared.
one operations assistant that works 50% in business finance and 50% supporting Title I. Yep,
So it's not just all in that one office.
yeah, I mean, I was saying, over the course of those 5 years, to answer your question, we've added 160 or so instructional staff. We've added 1 support staff.
In the business office.
No, 0 in the business office.
Oh.
1 in HR,
Okay.
the HR specialist to support the HR director. So
What, over 6 years, you said?
from FY 21 to now working on the FY 26 budget. If you look at the increase in staff across the different categories. There was 14 leaders, administrative staff of one sort or another. There was 165 or so instructional staff. There was 1 support staff.
So there was 1 increase in the business office?
No,
Okay, I understand.
support staff, including all the clerical,
Okay,
technology, business office. Then we did new liaisons, new security, so. It's a fair question, but we really are operating the district at, I don't know, 40% more money. With very, very few added support staff.
no, I get what you're saying, and there's a chance that, I mean. What's the decrease is like 200 students, right? Over 200 students for comparing the incoming class with what we've had,
With
right?
the 600 kids that are
Yeah.
graduating, is that what you mean?
Yeah,
I haven't looked.
I'm just wondering if
numbers,
that's
To be
the-
honest with you, but I would think it's maybe about, somewhere in the 150.
I mean, if that's the trend, then I imagine that the instructional, the number of teachers is probably gonna, in time,
Mhm.
is probably gonna go down as well.
Yeah, and it's tricky because the number of kids who graduates versus the number of kids who come in always fluctuates. It's never the same. But our overall enrollment is pretty stable. Somewhere between 2,000 and 2,100 at different points during the year. We've been at 2050, we've been at 2075. So that's been relatively stable. The place where we anticipate there's gonna be changes to enrollment is that typically around January, we see a large influx of new students coming in from other countries, typically in South America, and that area, which we did not see happen this year, and we don't anticipate that that's gonna happen in the next few years. And that's why you see us reducing the number of EL teachers in several places across the districts. That's why you see 3 or 4 EL teachers coming out of the budget from last year to this year, because we don't have the same level of need that we would have had in typical previous years. But we consider all of this, and we talk to the directors, and we look at the enrollment, and we measure all of that as we make recommendations on what positions should go.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that you guys are doing your
I
job.
was far from done. Not from it. Huh? I didn't even finish my questions. Too bad. When I went through it, and I did ask this week, so, no, you don't have to be lenient, because I did ask to speak. So there was 5, in the budget, I counted 5 C2Cs, but we have 4 here. And it said 568,000. So if we can double check that one,
What would that be?
Unless they were counting. I don't know if Victoria's was officially classified as a coach or a consultant teacher, but she
Oh.
initially started, I believe, as a consultant. teacher.
And then switch to a coach.
Yeah.
Coach, but it might not have changed.
Yeah, I'm not done.
and then I was wondering what the RHS Academy pilot, is that the freshman pilot?
That is, you know,
Is that-
what page are you on?
I'm not, these are notes, this,
I think that
it was
is
70,000.
non-salary.
Yeah, it's near the end, non-salary programs, and it's in the same table as one goal.
Yeah,
So that might be the Bright program. I would, Matt would have to look at that more specifically. I don't know exactly which one it was, but
Let me know,
yeah.
or us know.
I can tell you that we did meet with Chris and say, what can you cut, what can you cut, what can you cut, what can you cut? So
Okay,
Matt did
Just to
refine that, but
look
he can get more specific.
also Rebus, it went from 12,000 to 50,000, and I'm not saying it's not a great program, and I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good superintendents on that board. And seeing that most of the suggestions of how great the program is came from 4 of our former colleagues here. But why such a big jump?
it was actually.
Go ahead, yeah.
So we last year that was under RBT because we had historically, that was the provider. We just moved it to Rebus because Rebus and Associates is the provider.
But I think
So-
it was a lot less.
It wasn't.
And it
It
was
wasn't.
crossed up, put 0.
Yeah. That's what it was.
So we work with Rebus and Associates for 2 things now. We used to work with RBT, which was John Sapphire. Sapphire, I don't know why, I'm getting tired, John Sapphire. You remember him, Fred?
Digging way back.
I know, so he taught the understanding teaching course that all Revere teachers are required to take before they complete their 3rd year with us. And that's been a tradition in place for about 25 years. And it was actually maybe 10 years ago that we switched from Saphir's understanding teaching course to Bill Rebus's introductory teaching course.
Mhm.
In addition, we work with Bill on our educator evaluation program. He does some close studies with the administrative team when there's a teacher who might be in struggling. He works closely with the administrators who supervise that teacher to ensure that they're doing everything they can first to support the teacher and help them improve their practice, and if not, follow the legal obligations required to move away from our relationship with that teacher.
He also now offers the administrative course for training our new administrators on evaluation, which has always been practice.
Thank you. And then I had one last question was, what is the difference between a confidential administrative, family liaisons, and student engagement coordinator?
So I don't know what the confidential, what was that?
It says confidential administrative.
Your second.
Confidential administrative secretaries are my secretaries, who are required to be confidential secretaries because of the nature of the work that happens in the superintendent's office. And what was the other one? Family
So
liaisons.
the family liaisons and student engagement, and I know what the family liaison stuff do, and
Yes.
this to help with attendance and all that, which now our operation coordinators are in charge of too.
So there's a family liaison at each school.
Right.
And they are always multilingual, and their work is to engage families. And sometimes they're engaging families because a child's been absent too much. That would happen more at the elementary level than at the middle of the high school, because you're right, at the middle and the high school would be the operations person who would be engaging the family that way. But the family liaisons always also do things like make sure that families are aware when there's gonna be a principal coffee. Make sure they are welcomed in and feel welcomed when there's gonna be any kind of a PTO event or any kind of a school evening event, things like that. They'll do direct reach out to families to try to engage them more. And the principals will tell you again that that's a position that they've learned they cannot live without. They also offer translation services when needed on demand in the building, so that's another great thing that they do for us.
So would
And-
the communication director have part of that too, reaching out?
He might post things or put articles in the journal or do stuff like that, but he's not gonna call families and say, Principal Friesen is having a principal's coffee on Wednesday morning. It would be great if you could join us, and
Well, it would be good that it got posted too.
yeah, I think the schools post everything on their school calendars. But there was somebody else that you mentioned, Stacy, student engagement coordinators, okay. Those are strictly at the high school, there's one for each house. And the student engagement coordinators are the ones on that team, on the student support team. We talked before about the student support specialist, which is the one who follows them academically. The student engagement coordinator is the one who follows the kids. If they're off program, late to school, too many absences. It's the engagement coordinator who would pursue that with the students and the family.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go on.
You can go, yes.
I got a couple questions. First of all, in the business office, the special funds manager, clarify that for me, please.
So our special funds manager is in charge of every single penny of all of the funds that we receive that are not appropriated budgeted dollars. So all of our grants, all of our revolving accounts, all of our school donations, every single one of those has to be accounted for separately from the regular budget with an immense amount of detail depending on the type of the fund. With the grant accounts, we have to expend the funds in accordance with the grant approvals and then submit for reimbursement every single month. So it's an incredibly important position. We have an excellent person in there who
No,
does
just-
that
yeah.
work.
I just want
And-
clarification on it.
It stretches across accounting function, payroll function, procurement function, also providing support to our grant writers. Helping them with their budgeting, with their spending, with keeping things in line. So that position started maybe in 2005 or 6 or 7, and only has grown with the amount of dollars that are managed there.
And on page 78, we have a social worker, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 psychologists.
Okay,
Page 78. Now, we deducted 2, so we had 11, so it's 9. Correct?
Mhm.
Now, can you clarify what they're actually used for? Because we have,
Just to clarify,
yes,
we had 9 and it's been cut to 7.
7, okay.
That's the way this is functioning in your budget. We're showing the reduction of staff below the original number. So we went from 9 psychologists to 7 in the budget.
Okay. So what is their primary? Because remember, we have the behavioral
mhm.
analysis, we
Yeah.
went from 6 to 4.
So,
So even if we had 6 and we had 9,
so once a student is identified as likely in need of special education services, they have to go through a battery of tests from a licensed school psychologist. And we do that, these folks do that work, or if they don't have enough time to do it, we have to hire an agency to do it. That's all mandated by the state. And it's a licensed school psychologist who actually diagnoses whether there is a specific or non-specific, and if it is specific, what type of learning disability the child has. And then they identify what kind of interventions will be necessary, and the special education teacher writes the IEP off of those testing results.
you know, we need, we had 9, but we actually need 7. It's that much. That many problems going on.
We
And
probably
referrals.
Yeah, people.
save money
Referrals,
because
yeah.
we used to, we
Just to
hire
pay-
on per diem, and we probably saved money
Yeah.
this way,
Yeah, we
unfortunately.
would spend a lot of money on outside agencies to come in and do the testing. And we're responsible not just to test kids in the Revere Public Schools, but every child who lives in the city of Revere. We are required to provide testing services for everybody.
And then my final and last one, on our directors, they have 3 assistants and 3 operations assistants, correct?
Where are you talking about?
The directors,
There's 3 assistant directors, 1 assistant to the
EL.
EL director. And 2 assistants to the sped director. So there's 3 assistant directors.
And Brianna might, she's an
Brianna is an
assistant
assistant
director.
curriculum.
and then we have 3 operations.
We have 4 operations assistants.
Yeah, what's that's what I couldn't understand. What's the difference?
So an
between-
operation assistant is a secondary.
Okay. For the assistant of the director, or just the separate?
So there's one operations assistant or secretary. Who works with the STEM director, the humanities director, and the
Okay.
assistant curriculum director.
Okay, they're spread out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And some of them share, like there's one who works with Jonathan Ferrara doing all the IT stuff, but is shared with Frank Shea doing athletics, and with Jill Herwig doing health and wellness. There's a couple of them in the special ed office because they have a lot more requirements in terms of filing paperwork and getting signatures from parents on IEPs and all of that. So they actually have, is it 2 or 3 over there? 2?
2 plus office administrator. Yeah.
John, next question. I see there's a 60% cut to the middle school honors program scheduling assistant. How is that gonna affect the middle school honors program?
It shouldn't at all. I think that is the consultant that we were paying for Power School, who has been supporting the middle school in redesigning their schedule as we went back to implementing honors curriculum, but the capacity should be there now to do that internally.
The work's been done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, my final questions, page 18, what is miscellaneous payments to TN?
Stipends.
So it went up because we'll have more of those stipends?
Where Find that one out.
It's the miscellaneous payments to teachers. Is the DESE's language for stipends for teachers who are doing extra work throughout the year.
Oh.
Mentors,
PGT facilitators, BBST
and the reason
coordinators.
it increased is that those annual stipends increased in the recent collective bargaining.
Okay, and then on the page, I'll let you get there, it's 108. It's the school committee. Items. I wanted to ask, what dues and registrations are we as a committee paying that have us that 10,000 a year? And what are reimbursable expenses as well?
You can answer. It's a lot.
We use it, we never used it.
To use technology, maybe, I don't know.
No.
We cut it in half.
No, so that $10,000, 10,500 is your cost for belonging to MASC.
Is it, I thought it was 3,500.
No, it's closer to that figure.
And then what is reimbursable expenses?
Every single month, each school committee person receives a $500 allowance for your expenses in doing your job.
You don't get that,
Sure you do. Yeah, I run it every
we
week.
do? What do you?
I mean, I run it
Okay.
first of the month.
First of all,
I don't understand, like, I have no idea what that is.
If you look at your bank
Look at
account,
your
you'll probably
bank
see a direct deposit of $500 on the first of every month.
well,
Never.
it's
More than
combined.
that. It's
Okay,
more
so
than
hold on,
that.
it's combined now.
It's combined.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's all mixed into one, so we don't see
It's one.
you see a separation on the pay stub, but it's all one amount.
Right, so
On the
it's-
physical pay stub, it's separated, it is, but it's one amount rolled
So
into
we
one.
get paid $258 a month for this?
a school committee member receives a $10,000 payroll compensation for serving.
And then
And
another
they
six,
receive a $6,000 annual allowance
but it's all bucketed together,
for your.
so you don't get two
expenses.
direct deposits, you get one.
Oh, so that's the, okay, I thought this was like something.
No.
And it's going up because we're,
Yeah.
you don't get in mind that there's gonna be 2 new members.
And we put that in at a 50% rate because they're not gonna start till January, so
Okay.
second half.
And then on the next page, 109,
Like it's 16.
is there, I know that you have already reduced significantly conferences and miscellaneous, but I was wondering if there was any more that could be reduced on professional development conferences for the superintendent.
Jackie, what
Actually-
page you want?
109.
Yeah, we talked about this last time, that line item there is not primarily for the superintendents. It's for teachers who are going to attend conferences recommended by the curriculum director.
Oh, I see.
And this is the place where we can reimbursement for their travel costs.
Oh, I thought this was just Dr. Kelly. Okay, thank you. And then why did we increase on page 110 our supplies and materials from 6,000 to 10,000?
Page 110, which line are you talking about?
It's under the second category, supplies and materials, line item 2.
Oh, other supplies and materials went from 6,000 to 10,000?
Mhm.
That's the cost for your print center. So every year I go to the actuals of what was requested of our copy center to do his work. And so the copy machine leases are intact, so there's no increase there. But the cost of toner, paper, special paper that he's been using, 6,000 wasn't even close.
Okay. What was it, Mr. Chairman?
I guess we should move on to the difference of 400,000 plus. Thank you for bearing with us.
Right, well, that's. So everyone knows what we just did is so important. Because the 6 of you will be voting this budget by series only. But you own every detail that's in here, so you should always feel completely empowered, both in this setting. Or individually, to say, can you help me understand why this increased, why this decreased? Because ultimately, you're the ones who are signing off on it. So that the details is an important exercise. Typically, not this way, we're all stressed out because it's June and we're still doing that. So kick now back up to the biggest picture. Stepping into this conversation, the committee requested of administration, hey, can you go back and try and chip away another $1.7 million of savings. We'd be more comfortable voting a budget that has that additional savings in it. And so we've presented where we can get about 1.2 of those savings. That still leaves us with roughly a $500,000 difference between what you requested and the work that we've been able to do in the last few weeks. So there's two places that I would say we can cover that $500,000 difference and respect the request not to dip into the reserves for it. The first is with our carry forward figure. So remember that when we first do this budget and I do my first drafts in February, March, I'm doing the best I can to have a conservative estimate of what I see our unspent funds from the current year to be going forward. So I locked that in at 5 million for budget purposes. Typically, we wouldn't change that because typically we would have, I mean, in previous years, we would have already voted the budget. Now that we've had some more time and we've done a lot more spending and it's now the first week of June, the projections that I'm doing, I have confidence that we'll have at least another $250,000 available in the carry forward to use for these purposes.
Give me that number again, I'm sorry.
250 more. So it's still conservative that instead of employing 5 million of the carry forward, 5.25, I think we can say with confidence. If you want to look at the 603 lines of calculation and all the math, we can do that. But I'm confident in that. And again, our estimate from 4 months ago was a good one. And then the second thing is that it appears that the legislature is going to fund the circuit breaker reimbursement at a higher percentage than they had this year, for example. And so that other $250,000 can easily come from the difference between the 70-something% reimbursement that we've assumed and a 90% reimbursement that we're told is coming. And so that second $250,000 that we would need for these cuts to get us to a balanced budget would come from that bucket of funds. And you'll see that reflected in the next version of the budget under what the carry forward circuit breaker reimbursement is anticipated to be.
So 90% reimbursement, you said?
We're
Is what the
understanding that there's gonna be a
expectation
supplemental budget that is favorable right now in both the House and the Senate. That would increase the reimbursement rate from the current 75%, which is what we've budgeted based on what's been released by the governor, the House and the Senate already. And that the supplemental budget will actually raise that to 90%.
And if that's the case, what do our numbers look like?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question.
You just, so it's an additional $250,000 in carry forward.
That's where you're
Top
getting
of
that
250,
250?
that's what
That's where I'm getting the second
An additional 250.
Okay,
that we would need to, instead of presenting to you $1.7 million of cuts. We're presenting to you roughly 1.2. Because we're increasing our reimbursements, our carry forward employment and our circuit breaker
I'll
amount.
do all.
And even that's conservative.
But you're still relying on $2.3 million in reserve money.
Correct.
We're 2.2, right now we're relying on 2.2 in reserve, and we are hoping that between the carry
It will be more.
forward and the circuit breaker, we would be down to 1.7.
Right, the last time we spoke, the deficit was at 3.4.
Said by half.
Just as a generality, we would say, can you guys work on that and
Yeah.
cut that dependence by half? So now, at the
least by-
we would say like this, at the most. This budget would be requiring us to mobilize 1.7 of the $10 million of reserves that we have to make next year work.
So we've already, so scratch the 5 million of carry forward, that's already been incorporated into this table.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
So then it's the two, where's the first two?
Yeah, you-
It's in
this
the
page right
carry
here.
forward, so it's it's now 5.25 out of carry forward, and then an additional 250,000 in circuit breaker reimbursement, so now it's actually, you're really taking about 5.5 million in carry forward. To
Okay.
supplement next year.
And then 1.7 is coming out of our 10 million of reserve.
Yeah, it's originally given to 3.4.
Correct.
Okay.
From reserves, but we want, last meeting, we asked them to at least try to let it some chance. If not, get to zero.
We never wanted to take 3.4.
So it's-
I don't want you to take anything.
It's definitely more palatable, I could say. I mean, it's still, it's unfortunate that we have to dip into it this soon, but it's more palatable.
It is because.
I don't
this
know.
was the last.
I don't know what's proper, but this is what I wanna do. I would like the Ways and Means Committee to vote on, recommend to the full committee 2 items. So Ms. Monteroso's point. Maybe we can't keep 6 health aides, maybe I'll settle for 3. I would like to maybe see 1, I mean, you would decide where they go, but my opinion would be. Leave 1 at the Whalen, it's the biggest school, the Whalen and the Garfield are the biggest schools we have. And if a nurse is out and we don't have a replacement, at least there's 2 people in the building to handle.
I
What,
think that would be left
1,300
to
kids?
Jill
Could we-
to decide.
We
Right, no, I'm just
make
saying, I'm just
recommendations
saying.
to you or.
Well, no, that's
can
what I
we
want, well, that's what I'm gonna ask the
And you
committee
can-
to recommend to the full committee, so I'm gonna ask 3 of us on the committee. These 2 things that are, that
But
I want to
those are
see.
your things that you wanna see, there's the rest of other people.
Right,
that
but
may
the
have
committee,
something
I'm
else.
asking the Ways and Means Committee to recommend that to the full committee.
So
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
That's
I-
the way
I
it would
think
normally go.
Not
You would
necessarily.
have it, no, but you'd have a subcommittee meeting and the subcommittee would put forward their recommendation. That's what I'm asking to do.
So
I'm asking this subcommittee.
I would like time to, I don't even know what you're asking for your
You're
particular
asking for your
items.
particular items.
Well,
So,
not necessarily, no. We've talked, Ms. Monterosa brought up the health aides and I was gonna bring them up
Point of
too.
order, you said you had 2 items.
I have a
to
second
determine. I'd like
I have
to
a second.
hear all of your things.
Yeah, I have a
and then
second one.
You
Um,
can make your motion and then people, you, the subcommittee.
Well, I was gonna
decides.
take them up separately. The second one is the junior ROTC. I was told on good authority, there are 190, over 190 students signed up to take classes next year for only 2 instructors. The job is half paid for by the Army. I don't know any other position that we have in the budget that gets half paid for by somebody else, maybe other than a grant. But I think I just don't see cutting that. So I would like the committee on those 2 items. I'd settle for 3 health aides. And my thought is, again, the bigger buildings that, that may require that because of the size of the building. I mean, the Garfield and the Whalen have what, 1,300 kids? I think that's a fair number.
again, that would go through the health director to decide where the necessity. of
Right, no,
those are.
I said, that was just my suggestion. I didn't say that's what they have to be. I understand that's not my purview. But I think keeping a couple of them at the amount of money they make isn't gonna break this budget. And the junior ROTC person, half the money, half of the salary comes from the Army. And there's over 190 kids signed up for next year.
There are not 190
There are
individual
190
students.
There are 190 individual
So
students.
you were
according
in
to the
Power
guy-
School, is that what you started?
I asked. I was
Who?
told.
The point of information, John,
I'll
during
stand by the number.
the discussion of ROTC, you just made reference half the salary is paid. I believe the superintendent made reference that they have benefits. But if they're retirees, why are we paying benefits?
I mean, to all due respect, Mr. Snow, I don't know. All I know is the salary is half paid. And there were 190 students signed up for classes in the fall.
Leanne, I don't know
That's what I was told.
So can I make a
Can you tell me
recommendation
who you
being
spoke
on
to,
the,
John?
The guidance director.
Guidance.
so I'd like to make a recommendation being on the committee of the whole,
Sure. Oh,
that you get your list, I'll get my list, Anthony will get a list. If any of the other members of the committee of the whole want to forward what they might think, that way we can be ready for the next meeting to go through it. And, take it up that way, but to decide on your 2 items right now, I don't think is really fair. We all have, we all have ideas.
Can we take more of a look at it? We can
So-
talk more.
Right, so
Time
it's
to-
it's June 3rd
Right?
and,
We have a budget hearing, posted for the June 17th meeting.
So we'd have to squeeze it in one more time, but.
Mhm.
so
No one's getting-
We have
in
the
other
11th.
words,
For next week.
the marching orders that I would need is to say, hey, we've had this conversation. let's take what we talked about today, which gets us to a balanced budget. Let's make that version 4.0. And then I can get that to the Ways and Means Committee. And then you'll be working from that next version of the budget that incorporates these cuts. That has us to a balanced budget with the things that we've talked about. And then can be taken to the next stage. Does that make sense? In other words, you don't want to be working from
No, the old one, I
the
get
old
it,
one.
I get
So-
it, that's fine, it progresses, it advances us.
Okay.
And I think the next meeting, unless the committee has other thoughts, can be specific to discussing whatever suggestions or thoughts the committee and members may have with respect to certain issues and hashing that out and coming to a consensus on those. And I don't think there's many. I know we're hearing lists. I don't have many, but I do have a couple. You've heard them today.
So we can present to you a fourth version of the budget.
Okay.
That incorporates today's conversation. What you will see there is a balanced budget. That is only requiring $1.7 billion of the reserve to
Got it.
make the year go.
But
I can present that to you.
So the next steps are the version 4 based on what was discussed. And then that's when we can
June
Dis-
11th, there's a meeting now.
discuss, like, if people wanted to talk about nurse aides and where that could come from, with the civics coach and all that. So we have to wait until then.
June 11th is the
And
next.
that's June 11th.
Yeah.
For Ways and-
So that is
Be
the-
around.
So that is
I
the
have that on my
I
next,
can't make it.
That's the next meeting.
so that is the next step. That's.
I don't
what
have that in my
happens.
calendar. What is, do we have?
I have, some reason in my
It was
mind, I
supposed to
had
be
June
In
11th.
the morning.
I have a June 9th. I have a,
That's the bus meeting.
Committee of the
Transportation,
whole.
excuse me, transportation meeting.
Oh.
sorry.
at what, 30?
Correct.
I don't have anything on my calendar for June 11.
Can we do it that day?
I thought you said June 11th. And that's what Robin sent out to us.
Yeah,
I can't make.
I think that got
I have
canceled to
Georgia.
today.
No.
Yeah, no, I don't have it in my calendar either.
No, nothing.
okay, so then can we have a Ways and Means
Should we
meeting?
adjourn first?
Okay,
If we're gonna go back and,
Motion to adjourn,
Second,
no,
only
you
up to nine.
can't.
oh, sorry.
just the committee. Motion, we adjourn at 4:40.